Hello, Victoria, and welcome to the Make Life Rich Movement podcast. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Everyone, we are going to have a really eye-opening and beautiful conversation today. Victoria Sinis is a thought leader, a follower of Jesus, and a podcast host of the Creating Gems podcast. She is an absolute light and just spreads such truth that is needed right now and is exposing a pretty big industry that you may not think too much about. Likely you don't think too much about it, but I guarantee you someone in your life is very heavily indebted to the topic and the conversation that we're going to discuss today. So, Victoria, I just am so thankful for your honesty and your sharing your story and your testimony. You've brought so many people to a deeper place of understanding for what certain industries and commonplace things in our life really aren't what they appear to be. And I just want to credit you for that because you're doing really hard work that I think a lot of people are very terrified to take on. And you've done so gracefully and with so much spirit and energy, and you are making a big difference. So thank you for your work.
That's so kind. Thank you. I really appreciate the encouragement. Thank you.
I would love to learn a little bit about your upbringing. You grew up in Australia, which sounds like a really beautiful, magical place. And I think we all have early interactions, some of us, with different substances and things in our life that can kind of send us on a little bit of a journey. And I found a lot of similarities between our journeys and just really thankful that you were so open to sharing it. So if you don't mind, I would love for everyone to get to know a little bit about younger Victoria and growing up in Australia and kind of what your life was like.
Yeah, definitely. So I've grown up like a first generation Australian. So both my parents are actually immigrants. So my father was born in Greece in a little town 3 hours outside of Athens called Nafakto. Like full village people. Like my grandparents passed away before I was born, but my parents have told me my yaya, which is like my grandmother, used to tease my papu because she was like, I'm more educated than you because I got a grade 3 education and you only got a grade 2. So like full village spec, which I love. Yeah, so my dad grew up an immigrant, yeah, in Australia, which was really hard, very racist. And then obviously not speaking the language and all of that. And so my dad is, yeah, just a really excellent example of like a hard worker and resilience, and I love him so much. And then my sweet mum was actually born in Manchester, so yeah, it's so funny. My mum like is originally actually a redhead with like green eyes. My brothers are super pale. Like I'm called the FedEx kid because I look exactly like my dad. So I'm the only one that kind of looks Greek. So yeah, and I just have exceptional. I really love my parents. My mum literally has taught me the meaning of unconditional love. She's just the best thing ever. But yeah, so growing up, I guess yeah, it's been really. I'm just trying to think. I have two older brothers. I'm the youngest on both sides of my family, and so growing up was really, I guess, a unique experience from that perspective. My mum's one of seven, so I have like a bajillion first cousins. Yeah, so grew up very family orientated. But then, of course, there's always nuances and difficulties, I think, no matter in anyone's life, which stem back from very young childhood things. I think anyone perhaps growing up with immigrant, especially European parents,
Mhm.
understand and empathize with some of the complexities that come with that. And yeah, I'm just trying to think what else, like growing up in Australia, like specifically. We were talking about this off camera, but guys, this is total side quest. But where I live is not hot and there's no
Yes.
crazy animals. Yeah, I live in Melbourne. So Melbourne's like a city, and it's at the bottom of Australia. So it's predominantly cold, guys. But yeah, anyways, that's just the little general trivia of me growing up,
I
I
love
guess.
that. When you were younger, like what were your aspirations? I love you seem like such a creative soul and like you probably have been forever, but when you were younger, what were some of the things that you were getting into in your adolescence? Like did you feel like you had a track or like did you know what you wanted to do? Were you one of those kids?
No, not at all. I deeply struggled. So, like, I guess the context is I can sit here now for people listening and through a lot of healing be able to look back on my life and look at the structures and things that were put in place to make me the person I am today with a very healthy, well rounded lens. So, um, back when I was a kid, absolutely not. I struggled deeply from literally like being a 4-year-old child with this yeah overwhelming sense of like us and them of my life means nothing. I'm not good at anything. I have like memories of being in kindergarten and like feeling that way and just feeling, yeah, like I'm just an incapable human. So unfortunately, growing up, I didn't really have like hobbies. I didn't really like have anything. The environment that I was in, I think because I am the youngest and my oldest sibling is so many like 9 years older than me. By the time it kind of got around to me, it was kind of just like she can fend for herself type of vibes.
Mhm.
So that definitely meant that there wasn't a lot of structure, there wasn't a lot of encouragement, or really, like, I guess, emotional support that was needed to be like, hey, let's nurture some of these. Do you like this? Do you want to do that? Do you want to? So a lot of the times I would just revert and like to my imagination. I was a really, yeah, I like, in all honesty, I just loved watching TV. I loved escaping because it was always better than the world that I was in. And so I never had specific dreams, but I just always had this sense of, from a really, really young age, that there has to be more than this. What that was, I don't know. But I always just felt like I was here and I just needed to get there. And once I got there, then my life would matter. But I didn't know what those things were. You know, it was fill in the blank. So I guess that was kind of a lot of a big lens that I had growing up. But
Yeah. Very similar. I think
yeah,
there's a number of us in this. I'm much older than you, but there are a number of us that kind of had to deal with that. And I think there's a big beauty in learning those independence traits young. However, it does leave you feeling your worth kind of gets put to the side, and that's something you need to kind of reinforce within yourself. Were there moments in your earlier years where you were kind of very tapped into the fact that you needed to work on your worth and your value because you just weren't happy with the way that you were living and kind of like what was happening at the moment for you?
I think as we get into like high school years, there's always been, I guess, and I can only attribute this to God, honestly, there's always been like a wisdom beyond my years. And so the way that I like to explain this, and I think again, as you're saying, so many people can relate to this, is I feel like there's a parallel, there's almost like a duality. It's like there's the person that we are on top, and that's the person that, you know, suffers with the depression, the anxieties, the addictions, the feelings of not wanting to be here anymore. But then there's this underlying person, and that's the person that we were born to be, that thing that's within us that is just bursting to come out. Because you hear so many stories of people that this was my reality, this is who I was, but there was something within me, again, if it's a feeling of hope, if it's a feeling of this. And so the duality of me growing up was, on the surface level, from a very young age, really, I remember being like 12, 13, and crying to one of my teachers because I went and saw like a counselor at school and they wanted to put me on antidepressants. So from a young age, I was just really sad. The undertone was when I would talk to my friends, or the lens that I had, again, was like, I remember I would literally sit there and say to some of my friends, like, when we were like 14, and we were like struggling with boy problems. But I had this lens because, as you know, as like a 13, 14-year-old girl, that's the end of your life. If the boy, when you're 13, doesn't work out, um, then there's just no others left and you're screwed. But I would sit there, sorry guys, that's not literal.
It's so funny.
I would sit there and I remember being at a table and I would be like, babe, this is when we're born, this is when we die, this is how important this is. And I'm like 14, and so I always had this supernatural lens of wisdom and this supernatural lens of there is more. And I think that that's what kept me kind of going to a degree.
Mhm.
I was very deep in like depression, like from a very young age, and just honestly trying to get by, to put it simplistically.
Yeah. I think we all struggle with that. And there's definitely a gap between where, like, our adolescence and our early adulthood, where parents, I think, are finally like, whew, okay, like, I know you're not going to like accidentally fall out of a window and die. Like, you're great.
Yeah,
Check in with me if anything's wrong. And then we're kind of left to navigate these really treacherous waters. And I think waters that can set the tone for your life
totally.
in a way that, if you're not careful, you're really getting a lot of habits that are taking you down. And in getting to know you and following your story, I had wondered, did you grow up with faith or religion kind of in your household or in your life? Because to see where you are now in your relationship to God and this knowledge that you've always had, I was just curious, like, was there a moment where, you felt like you had this background to lean on, or was this truly just something that was in you innately and you were like, okay, I'm just going to listen to this. I don't know what else to do. I'm like 18 years old. Like, we're here and I'm just coasting through life and figuring it out. Or was it something that you had to lean on from like learning typically in your earlier years as those that grow up in religious households do?
So I have like two answers to this. I think something that I find quite interesting as I've gotten older is, and just like viewing faith, is there is a very, very big difference between people that truly follow Jesus and people that are convenience Christians and people that say, that they love Jesus, but there's nothing that's reflective in their life of that. And I grew up in a household where I remember when we were young, like I'm talking little, we would go to church, but again, we would rock up late because, they didn't want to be a part of worship, and then we'd leave early and like all that. And there was nothing in the home in any capacity, unfortunately, that was reflective of faith. Besides, we would say grace before dinner and my parents didn't swear. That's it. And so that's really disappointing, because then the lens that you have on a faith is, well, I can believe in Jesus, just say hypothetically, but nothing changes in my life and I can do whatever I want, but my salvation is set. And I think that's a really dangerous lens to have as someone that proclaims Jesus. So that's, I guess, my exposure to faith in the home specifically, is none. Besides, oh, I think if you follow Jesus, you just don't swear and you say grace
Yeah.
before dinner.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if it wasn't even for that limited exposure that I had, I think it's again so important that even it's like a both and. Because even though my home life didn't reflect faith in any capacity, unfortunately, besides kind of those two default things, there was something that happened when I was really little. And as I've grown up, I've asked people this story, and it turns out that it's true. So this memory that I have is real. I must have been like, I have no idea. My range will be 4 to 6 years old, really young. And I was in children's church. And I just remember that I'm sitting at the front of the stage and someone's speaking, and I'm right up against it and I'm listening to them. And they're telling this story of a shooter in America that came. And again, like, this isn't a hectic story for like children's church. So I never thought that it was a real memory, but a shooter that came to a school in America and went up to this little girl and said, denounce Jesus or I'm going to, take your life. And this little girl said, no, I'm not going to. And like the gun didn't go off or something. And he ended up getting, like, it was just this wild story.
Columbine.
See, that's what I'm saying. People, it happened.
It
And
did.
like, isn't that crazy? And so I had this memory and I didn't know if it was real or anything. And yeah, it wasn't until I started saying that to people when I came to Jesus that they're like, oh no, that happened. Because I don't have any other context besides that story. So all of that to say, growing up, my life did not reflect faith in any capacity. I did not read my Bible. I did not follow Jesus. But whenever I would be in conversations with people and it came to faith, my default answer would always be this, and it never wavered. It was, I don't know why, but if someone had like a gun to my head and like told me that God wasn't real and to say that God wasn't real, I'd tell them to shoot me. That was always my default story.
Hmm.
And I don't know where it came from, but I just innately. So again, it's like, to put it in Christian terms, that seed was planted. And so even though the environment around me didn't necessarily reflect God,
Hmm.
just by being in a place like that, you have no idea what can impact you. Because all those years, I just had this weird lens and I didn't even know if it was a real story. I only found out like a year ago that it is. And so that's why I'm like, even if your environment doesn't reflect it, I think it's so important to put children in a faith based environment, because you never know what will impact.
Hmm. It's so crazy that you bring up that specific instance. I was in 10th grade when that happened. And that was like the story that hit the news. And like within hours of it happening, because she survived because the gun didn't go off. So she was like one of the only people to come face to face with one of the shooters. So this was the story that was told. And I remember I did not grow up in a faith based household. We believed in nature and being kind to like nature and like one another. And that was pretty much it. Both of my parents had bad experiences growing up in the church. So when this happened, I remember just thinking like, what? Like, it was so important to her to say yes, that she was willing to die for it. And I just didn't understand. I have goosebumps now saying that. I just didn't
Yeah.
understand the gravity of the belief that a child could have when I had no concept whatsoever. And I just thought, I didn't scoff it off. I just thought, like, wow, this is something I really don't understand here. So,
Mm,
like, interesting to note. And over the last couple of months and like in growing in my faith journey, I have remembered that exact moment because we're like watching The Chosen and seeing the moments of like people having to like either renounce their faith or survive. Like you'll survive if you do that. And it's happening in Africa right now. And just seeing so many of these things coming together, you really do get a very deep sense of the gravity of faith in all directions, and that it is going to be the thing that gets you through so much, but it comes at a cost sometimes. And it's just so beautiful that that was something you heard at such a young age. I remember my age and just being like, whoa, what? So I can't imagine what an impact that would have on you at 6 years old to then be like, okay, done and done. I know that now. Like, that's what I'm going to do. I would love to fast forward to the beginning of your career. You fell into the hustle culture like we all do when we're very young, and falling into, all the dichotomies of be super balanced, get the best job, work super hard, learn all the things. So what was that like for you, kind of coming into your, what we'll say, adulthood, in finding, you know, work life and getting the balance of that and feeling like an adult? I think this is like a huge phase in everyone's
yeah.
life that we don't really give enough attention, because there's so much learning and discovery happening that really sets the tone for your remainder of your adult life.
Yeah, definitely. It's coming from, I guess, the home that I come from. It's really unique because a lot, especially I'd say American culture is like when you're 18, you're an adult and like figure it out. Where in my home and in my culture, especially with Greeks, like I joke, but I'm kind of serious. I'm like, my husband's gonna move in with me and my parents. Like we're all gonna live together and we're all gonna live on the same street, and like all of that to say, like it is really unique and different because there's so much duality in it. It's you're 18 now, you're an adult, you have to figure things out. Or some people are like, no, what do you mean? They're still a kid, like they just turned eight, like what? And so you're thrown into this mix when you go into the work world of adults and people that have it together, and then the 20 and then the 40 and the 50. Like it's so confusing, and like where do I fit in all of this, and what does my culture say, what does my home say? And for me, what had happened was I had graduated high school. I was a year younger. So I graduated in December, and I was 17, and I didn't turn 18 until the following April. And so I had gotten accepted into university because I was like, I guess that's just what everyone does. Like, I don't really know. But again, I didn't really have like specific dreams or aspirations, but when I was doing my final year of high school, I was really curious about the problem solving skills that were needed when it came to like health policies in third world countries. And so that really piqued my curiosity. And like specifically, I'd learned about in Africa that malaria was like huge. And so they implemented like this nets program. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. And I got into the gym. My dad's like an ex bodybuilder, powerlifter, incredibly fit man. So I got into the gym super, super young. So like I loved it, health and like fitness and all the things, even though I'm like a serial cigarette smoker. Anyways, again, the dualities of us. But so I was like, that could be cool. I was like, I guess I'll go to uni and it would be super fun to learn how to implement health policies for third world countries. And so I studied anthropology and sustainability and development and sociology. And it was literally the biggest brain rot I've ever experienced in my life, but it's just not what I expected. I think that they're like fluff degrees. I don't know. I have no idea. Mine was because we came in, and I remember the very first day, the lecturer was like, if you could build your ideal garden, what would be in your garden? And then the next like lesson was about, are we considered cyborgs if we have implants? And I was like, what? And then the third lesson was learning about this gorilla that knew sign language. And I'm just like, I can't. I didn't know what I expected, but I was like, I can't do this. So I dropped out.
Yeah, rightfully so.
But this is such a side note. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna roll this morning. I'm so sorry. I'm so chaotic this morning.
No, I love it. We're good. We're going everywhere. I'm here. I love stories. Brings me joy.
I was going to say, side note though, that experience at university has, do you know how like people will always have the, like when you become like a trillionaire, what would be the stupid thing you buy? Like mine is I want now a gorilla that knows sign language and I can teach it to play chess. And I learned that that happens from university because I'm like, I want people to come over and like hang out with me and my gorilla. That's what I'd buy if I had a
Love
trillion.
it. I
Anyways,
love it. He could just be your best friend. He has a room in the house. He's just like, "Are you ready to play? I'm
yep.
here."
And we just chat and play chess. And now I know that that's real. So thank you, Latrobe University.
I love that.
But yeah, so from there, I was like, okay, I'm out. I hate this. And yeah, I was in 18, so I wasn't driving. So I was taking public transport. It was like 4 hours of public transport every single day to go study, and I just hated it. So I dropped out and I just got, yeah, straight into the business world, into sales, into marketing. I can't even remember what my first job was back then, but I've done like everything, like retail management. I've worked in gyms, in sales memberships. I've worked in car dealerships. I've worked in, what's it called? Where people come to you and you have to go find people for jobs.
Or recruiter?
Thank you. I've worked in recruitment. I've worked in makeup startups. I've worked in skincare startups. I've worked in sales jobs where like all of your pay is commission and you have to go up to people on the street and like literally like sell them like high-end skincare, like all the things. And I loved it. I love sales. So that's a lot of my background is literally just like sales, working with people, marketing, all the things. And to be honest with you, like I love it. I love working. I think that it's such a skill that is lost in this generation of because of social media. People think that either it's whack or it's lame, or there's the extreme of I have to hustle and work like 200 hours a week and that's the flex. And I'm like, not really. I think that there is such a beauty in working hard and working well, but there's a humility in knowing that, hey, also I'm human and I have to rest. And it's always a balance. But by going so extreme in those ways, I think that it really taught me like a great work ethic. But it
Mhm.
also has taught me about the importance of, hey, I'm just a person and there needs to be rest as well. So you can run, you know?
I can't help but I know we haven't even gotten to the meat and potatoes of your story yet, but I find it so fascinating that between anthropology and sales, and then what you learned at what we'll discuss next, I'm like about to cry. You are so perfectly suited to speak to the person that does not believe that they have any value, that they have any worth, of being known by someone greater than themselves, that is here living for them, and that they are supposed to flourish in this lifetime and not feel like they don't deserve things. And you literally know how to speak to the hardest of people to speak to because of these skill sets of these commission only based jobs and, being a recruiter and putting yourself in all these very difficult, quick turnaround positions that require you to be able to think on your feet, think with your heart, think about what that person is going through, what position are they in. And I can't help but see this was like the arc of the skill sets that you were building. Like this was your college education that has gotten you to the place now to where you are in this space to be able to speak eloquently to others, share your ideas in a manner that's quick and gets the point across. Like all of these things are skill sets you had to acquire, but are now giving you not only the ability to preach what you've learned about life, but also to preach the dangers of this industry that you moved from these jobs into. And I am fascinated by this. This is it seems like a full circle moment of you being primed your whole life to be in the space, to be strong and ready and capable with experience for others to lead them away from that. That's like huge. Like I'm a little blown away by that. Like what a beautiful first, like full circle of life. And you're so young. Like I'm amazed. This truly seems like your calling in such a beautiful way.
Oh, that is it. Wow, that is really kind. I'll be honest, I never saw it that way. Like to be like I never had that perspective. So that is like the sweetest thing. Thank you so much. That is so encouraging. Thank you.
Of course, it's just what I see. It's just right. Yeah, I'm in PR and marketing, so our brains work in that way. But it does take a storyteller. It does take a passionate person to be able to free others from the things they don't know are trapping them, whether it's OnlyFans, which we'll get into, or, just not being happy with your life, knowing that the way you're living isn't the best way that you could be using the soul and the body you've been given in this journey. But I would love to get into your marketing position at this agency. I have never heard it described the way that you describe it, and it is very much a business. And I think a lot of people look at the lascivious side of it and they're like, oh, it's just porn, but it's so much more than that. And I think it's really enchanting the way that you explain the true nature of the back end of what you were doing and what the business you were working for was a part of. And I think when people get to see that it is a true machine through and through for the purpose of objectifying, tapping into those wounded parts of you on all sides, and then, the sin of benefiting from the downfall of so many individuals at one time. I can't imagine how hard it was for you to work there, especially as you'll come to tell us about your time there and just the different thoughts and realizations that were kind of coming to top of mind for you. But tell us about that job and kind of give us a brief overview of exactly what they do, because I think everyone kind of understands what OnlyFans is, but the content creation, all of that, I've never gone on it. I have no idea the actual mill of
Mm.
creation it requires to even just be minutely successful. So I'm so thankful for your sharing this insight, because I think it's going to help a lot of people to really understand how deeply this goes beyond just a video on the internet.
Yeah, definitely. What an eloquent way to put it. But yeah, so through all of these series of events, I guess that we can understand the context of what I was doing when I was in business. I had a friend decide that they wanted to start this thing called an OnlyFans agency. So, as you said, a lot of people have heard of OnlyFans. Not many people have heard of OnlyFans agencies, and that's because they are underground. And so, basically, the brief synopsis of an OnlyFans agency is, as you said, people have to understand that OnlyFans, what you see on Instagram and through news articles, that's the forward facing of a business. There's an entire back end of this business. And so there is this massive allure that I can just jump onto OnlyFans, I can just sell my feet and I'm going to make millions. But that's not true. And that's a huge lie. And so what had happened for me is I had a friend again approached me with my background and was like, hey, we're starting this business, would you be interested in helping us? And my lens was that of, I don't know, like I hear that you can make a lot of money. I think that you just have to sell your feet on. I don't really know. I know people that do OnlyFans, they have big followings, they seem happy, therefore okay, this must be a positive. And a lot of people think that. So I come into this business, brand new bootstrap startup business, and my role is to help the marketing division and to build this marketing division. So all of the stuff that you see on social media is literally strategic content that is planned on a back end, probably, I would presume, by an OnlyFans agency to market OnlyFans girls. And it is done in a very specific and curated way. We had people that were literally algorithm like experts, and they would send us videos every single day of this very specific, curated, provocative content that we would send to the girls. And these girls had like 5 TikTok accounts, 3 to 5 TikTok accounts, and they're posting these videos on every single account. They're posting up to 5 videos per account. So that's 20 videos of this very manipulated, curated type of content, which is hypersexualized with the intent to draw people in. Now, this is manipulated content, which means that it's going to go viral. So, what this is doing to people is, again, it's pulling more people in to consume porn, because OnlyFans is porn and there's no other way to put it. It is a porn platform. And like, you're not going to go on there and sell your feet and make a bunch of money. It's just not true. Unless you're like a massive celebrity and you do it as a joke, like, it's not going to happen. Um, and so you're having to literally post full-blown pornography. I think there was a statistic in 2022 that there was 2.1 million creators on OnlyFans, and only 300 of them made more than a million a year. So you have to remember that you have like Black China was on there, you have like Cardi B, you have Bad Barbie, you have these mega celebrities that are the ones that are pulling in all this money. I think Iggy Azalea is on there. And so, of course, there's going to be this huge disparity. And so it's going to look like you can make all this money. But these people already have millions of followers that they can pull into their ecosystem to promote their OnlyFans. So the everyday person doesn't. So on average, the actual wage of an OnlyFans creator is $180 a month. So realistically, you're not going to make any money. And so, anyways, this is, I hope people are starting to get the picture that I'm painting here of it is a marketing machine. And so, the more viral you can be, the more people you can pull in. So then you can make money. That's the whole point of this. The whole point is to make money. And so we would take a 20%, or up to, it depends. I shouldn't give a definitive. Every agency is different, but an agency will take a percent of the girl's earning, which is why they're incentivized to make them go viral, to pull more people in, to get more money. And that's just one element. That's literally just the front facing marketing. And like we would get girls, I think in 7 days, on one girl's brand new TikTok account, one video got 2.2 million views of this hyper sexualized innuendo content. So I'm hoping people can understand the gravity of just one agency in Australia, that how much is this influencing and just overtaking social media, and what is that doing to us? Then you get into account management. So a lot of people think they're talking to the girl on OnlyFans. Realistically, you're actually not. You're talking to a chatter, and a chatter is someone that's hired from a third world country. That's a sales job, and their role is to pretend to be the girl to make money off you. And then there's recruitment, and then recruitment as well is literally scouring the internet looking for people that are already posting provocative images to try and allure them to come to the agency to do porn so you can make money off them. And this is a massive global industry. We were talking to people in literally the Ukraine, in Germany. There is a whole sub industry of OnlyFans marketing and promotion that exists. And it is all a part of the porn industry, which is a $97 billion industry. And it's this whole entire ecosystem that exists on the side here, but we only see the front facing of it. And you don't understand until you're pulled into this insidious system what's really happening.
My goodness. I think that's insane. The one thing that I was absolutely shocked to hear was in hearing you on an episode of your show, Creating Gems, where you were kind of discussing the OnlyFans industry. I don't know why I was so shocked that it was lit like the agency was ran the same way as a PR agency would be for a client. And it clicked so immediately in listening to your episode. I was just like, my God, this has become an ironclad machine, as you said. And this is not going anywhere quickly. We're going to have to heal people's hearts to make this level of addiction and this immediacy to access of it. Like it's a huge problem, like an immense problem. And I think the one thing that you said that I found the most interesting was that, women think, oh, I can just it's like a running joke amongst girlfriends. Like, I'll just start an OnlyFans for my feet. Well, even if you did, and let's just say you very innocently just put up some piggy toe pics up, 5 or 10 of them. And then a few years from now, you go to get hired and you never checked into that account again. You don't even know if you made any money on it. But now you go to get hired for a job, and in them doing a pull of who you are, because you innocently made it with your main Google account, they now know that you have an OnlyFans account because you cannot delete that data. They own your material. Once it's uploaded, it's very difficult to get it taken down. And that for me also, I think, kind of sealed the deal in that this is only about money. This was never about empowerment, even if we, very silly to think it would be a measure of empowerment. But I think it's a part of the bigger conversation that we've certainly been sold in America, and I now know has trickled to all other far-reaching countries, that the lack of morality has allowed for those that have these multi-million dollar, billion-dollar industries thought down to a science. It does really groom culture in a way that you're both either a participant or an exhibitioner. And I think there's such a 50 years ago, our grandparents would like literally shudder to think like, wait, what? What do you mean? And now it's like a common conversation amongst college girls. Like, are we on OnlyFans? Oh, let's have a party this weekend and just like get dressed up and like make content. And that breaks my heart. It's so insane how far we've fallen down, just even with the morals of being okay with like just taking the misconception of what OnlyFans is and knowing deeply in your heart, once you've seen and got a little taste for it, and the personal DMs from clients wanting specific videos, and like the part of your soul it has to take every time you're partaking in this. I think there's definitely a wave of individuals like you that are allowing the truth of what is really happening to come out and giving another perspective, which I think the youth are so desperately looking for. They're either heading in the direction of becoming heavily conservative with their moral views because they just are so freaked out and scared about what's happening out there, or they go the opposite direction and they become fuel for the machine. And I think we absolutely need people like you, and especially people your age, to be kind of leading the charge to say, like, hey, this was something that got thrown at us young. We all had access to porn at a very young age because of cell phones, but this is not normal. This is not okay. You're selling your soul. Your dignity will be very hard to get back from this, and you will remember that you did this forever. But I would love to learn about the moment for you within this career of the marketing and kind of being in charge of, like, helping to build out this company, where you felt the turn and kind of began to exit.
Yeah. So what had happened for me is I'm doing all of the marketing and I haven't come onto the back end of OnlyFans yet. So I kind of briefly explained that there was account managers. And so what had happened was that the whole point of an agency is you're pretending to be the girl. So just say if I'm running all of the marketing and the OnlyFans account manager is doing all of the OnlyFans stuff. Well, if you're the subscriber and you're communicating with the girl on OnlyFans and on social media, but us as the team, we're not communicating on the back end, well, that's when the holes start to show. So that's when subscribers started to be like, hey, wait a minute, I'm talking to you here. Is this really you? Is it not? All the different things. And so we're like, oh, we need to change the back end structure. So what we had decided is that we will do less girls, but you'll do the full life cycle. So that's when I actually started to jump on the back end of OnlyFans and actually see what we were doing. Because as an account manager, you have to look through all of the porn. You have to know everything that's on there. You have to read all of the conversations, like everything. And so I've never been exposed to pornography. Like, I'm sorry, I've never been a consumer of pornography. And so I'm seeing this for the first time. And it's people that I know and that I've started to build relationships with. And the only way I can explain it is I'm like, literally, I'm malfunctioning. Like, I'm seeing these deeds, but I know them. And it's not computing in my brain because I'm like, this girl is so kind. This girl is so generous. This girl is hilarious. And this is what she's doing. Like, what? And so it just led me on this journey of asking people at the agency, like, what do you think about what we're doing? I'm really struggling. As I said, I'm like crying every day. I can't open up my laptop. I can't read these conversations. But people are telling me it's like a safe injecting heroin room. People need a safe place to do drugs. We give people a safe place to do porn. I'm not satisfied with the answers. And we're promoting a lifestyle through the agency's Instagram account. So we're throwing these massive parties in these multi-million dollar houses. We're doing the dinners, we're doing all the things. But that's the lifestyle that comes with it. So the drugs are out of control, the alcohol's out of control. And I'm like, nothing's working anymore. Nothing's making me feel better. I've never consumed this amount of drugs before. I'm staying awake for days. Like the drinking, the smoking, all the things. And I'm like, okay, nothing's making me feel better anymore. Nothing's working. I don't feel good doing this. I have to do something. So I was like, maybe if I do a big enough deed of good, it will offset all the bad that I'm doing and it'll make me feel better about myself. And so I was like, okay, I was like, what's an extravagant enough thing that I can do? And I was like, well, maybe I'll go overseas. Genius idea. And I was like, maybe I'll go overseas and I'll help a bunch of refugees. And that'll be so extreme that it'll offset all the bad that I've done working at the OnlyFans agency. And we were building a medicinal cannabis company at the time too. So I was like, sick, I'll go overseas. I'll help a bunch of refugees. And by the time I come back, the cannabis company will be up and running. Don't have to work at the agency anymore. Flow back to life. My karma's in a good place. And so I had this random thought. And as we now know, I went to church as a child. And I was like, that church I went to as a kid, I was like, they had like an outreach program. Well, actually, no, I call it a refugee program. I was like, they have like a refugee program. I was like, sick, I'll sign up for that. So I Google the church and I sign up for this refugee program, and this is where God, like, and all of this is God, because how would I think to offset all the bad that I'm doing? How would I think that there's this church that I went to that has this refugee program, sign up for it. And then God literally, that application to the outreach team never went there. But the young adults pastor got an email and it said, Victoria wants to reach out to the church. Here's her number, call her. And so I get a call from this young adults pastor, and she's like, hey, I heard you want to come down to church. And I just thought that that was like the vetting process of what like Christians do. I didn't really know, but I had alluded to what was going on a little bit. And so I get invited down to church on a Thursday. And I remember I rock up to this church and I'm literally sitting at the front and I'm like, I cannot walk in there. I am such a bad person. I will literally burst into flames. And I remember just mustering up the courage and walking in there. And I just word vomited for hours to this beautiful woman about all of the things. I sell porn. Everyone tells me that it's bad. I don't know. I mean, everyone tells me that it's good. I feel like it's bad. All the things. And she was so beautiful. She just goes, I really think you should come to church this weekend. We have a guest speaker and I think you'll really resonate with her. So come to church on a Sunday, and this guest speaker in church is talking about this over-sexualized culture. And she's talking about the dangers of things specifically like OnlyFans and what it is doing to the next generation. She goes around to schools and she sees what's happening. And she said this line, and she goes, Christians are supposed to be the salt and the light of the earth, and they have failed, and we are destroying the next generation. And it just clicked something within my heart. And I just went, I'm not crazy. This is wrong. What we are doing is wrong. And so when she finished speaking, I'm like in the balcony at the back. And I just ran down to her and I went up to her and said, my name's Victoria. I work for an OnlyFans agency and I hate myself.
Oh.
She was so kind. She goes, okay, let's have lunch. And this beautiful woman had lunch with me. And she just answered all of my questions. And I was like, isn't this positive? Isn't this liberating? Isn't this, all the things? And she just gave me the truth. And that was on a Sunday. By the Friday, I quit the agency. I walked away from everything. 8 weeks later, I'm sober, I'm baptized. And that was a year and a half ago. And honestly, every single day since then, basically, we have just been talking about this and Jesus and what he's done and the reality of things like OnlyFans.
Whew, what a beautiful story. I've interviewed a lot of people and I've always had goodness and like the purpose of like just wanting to help people make life rich. Like, how can you make your life rich? We're not talking about money, we're talking about our soul. And I always have guests where I'm able to see the full circle moment. And it really hasn't been until this episode where we have been so open about speaking about God and
Yeah.
your testimony and your journey that it is just so interesting to see that even the people that weren't thinking that it was God that was doing it, it still was. It's just such a beautiful thing. The people he places in your life, that woman speaking to you, letting you unload hours. I'm sure that wasn't convenient for her day, but she saw the need and she knew that that was her job for the day. And I just love so much that you've taken up that same sentiment, and your content and the work that you do is so real and so grounding. And it really does feel like you're on a crusade for dignity that is so needed in a way that I think very shortly here we're going to start to see the pendulum swinging back towards, at the very least, people questioning the true immorality that is like reeking everywhere right now. And not even for the whole hope and purpose of getting people to find God and strengthen that relationship, but just to want better for themselves. Like, let's start there if you need to start there. But I wonder, with your knowledge now of everything you've gone through and what you're doing, what are you working on now to kind of get this out there? I know we have the podcast that we've talked about. There'll be links in the show notes for you guys to click in on that. But where is Victoria going with this? Because I am so excited and I want to make sure that we're all able to follow you along on this journey.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. Right now, what we're working on, everything like has been such a whirlwind, and it's taken honestly a minute to really understand like what is the need and what do people need. Because I don't want to create anything that's just extra noise, and I've really wanted to be intentional with what is valuable and what do people actually need help with. And so, what it looks like right now is actually I'm starting to create a bunch of resources. A lot of them will be free, but there are so many people that are coming out of this industry or that have been even just touched in some capacity, even if it's not that I went and did OnlyFans or I've done porn, but have been impacted by this over sexualized culture. And the thing is, shame feels the same for everyone. And so it's like, how can we help facilitate on a global level, multi generations of people that have been touched by this to start that journey of healing? And it's something I really care about. And I care about doing it in a way that's accessible to everyone. And it's not that, well, if you follow Jesus, then you get, no, 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 no. We all deserve a seat at the table. And we all deserve, as you were saying, to feel like we have dignity, to know that we matter and to know that we're valuable. And so that's something that I've actually started doing and will be releasing soon, is just some product resources on how we can start that journey, resources as well for parents. How can you navigate these conversations? That's, I think, a really, really big one. And they're kind of the main two projects at the moment that will be coming out very soon, which I'm very excited for. And then, yeah, really focusing, hopefully creating gems can just be a place and space where it's like, as I'm going through all of these things or what I've gone through, again, everyone can have a seat at the table and we can kind of just verbally process things that no one wants to talk about, chat about. How do you heal? How do you forgive? How do you whatever it is. And it can just be a place that's hopefully a little bit refreshing for people, and that there is no agenda or judgment or condemnation. And it's a place that we can just kind of all grow together and see where this journey goes, as we're kind of all on a healing journey. So yeah,
Oh,
that's everything that kind of is in the pipeline at the moment.
I love it. You are such a treasure. I'm going to ask you a final question and then we'll let you go. Victoria, how do you make your life rich?
Jesus. Honestly, there's actually no other way to put it, guys. The simplicity. I was having this conversation with a girl recently, who is trying to come out of the OnlyFans life and really feels passionately about advocating about the dangers. And I had to put it just transparently, I could not heal unless it was for Jesus. And I know that might sound counteractive to what I was saying before. I think there are steps. I think that there are places and spaces that you don't have to, not everyone has to have a story like mine. You know, everyone's story is unique and it's tailor made and it's one of one for them on their timeline. For me, my personal journey has been that I could not heal unless I had Jesus. I needed him to heal, to have the courage to do what I do. It does not come from me, it literally comes from God. And so it's like, how my life is rich is because I know why it matters. I know where it comes from. I know my identity, whose I am, and I know the point of this life, and I know the end goal. And so that's what makes this all matter and mean something. That's why I mean something. That's why you mean something. So for me, the simplicity of it is finding who I am. And the only way that I found out who I was by understanding that it's through this thing called Jesus, and that he's real and that he changes lives, and he changed my life radically. So, how I make my life rich is hanging out with Jesus and simply enjoying that and enjoying what that means. And it's honestly as simple as that.
Yeah. So beautiful. Thank you so much, Victoria. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your time today. Everyone, check the show notes. There'll be a ton of links in there. And we'll be certainly keeping an eye on everything you're doing. And thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. This is great.